The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. When did he first tell his Minister of Finance that he had ruled out ever initiating the privatisation of Kiwibank?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
At the same time as I told the rest of the country before the last election.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when he said yesterday that he had ruled out the full or partial sale of the parent company of Kiwibank, did he mean that he had ruled out completely the sale of New Zealand Post?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I said what I meant.
Well, that's the problem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if that's what he meant yesterday, why did he tell News Talk ZB on the 8th of June that it was possible for New Zealand Post to be sold and that it was Kiwibank that was the asset that was off the table?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course the Prime Minister was correct. It's quite possible. However, the government has made a different decision.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Point of order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I raised this with you yesterday. This is a serious forum where ministers can be expected to be held to account. That means that they must make real efforts to answer and address the questions, and I don't believe that the minister did that. He's talking in riddles.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Speaker, you can't get a clearer answer than was given to that question. Possible, but the government's made a different decision. Now that's perfectly reasonable. Doesn't need any elucidation. It's not the answer that the opposition want, but it's perfectly reasonable and it is factual.
Well, a point of order, Mr. Speaker, that can't
opposition.
possibly be the answer when the answer to the primary question was that this decision was made before the election.
Order. The difficulty we're into now is we're litigating the quality of the answer by way of point of order. I think on this occasion the Minister's answer was a reasonable answer to the question. He said the government had changed its mind on something and, or made a different decision on something. And in fact, I was more concerned about the answer to the previous question, but the member seemed to be satisfied with that one. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, actually.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If the sale of New Zealand Post is completely now being dismissed, how does he explain the fact that the Minister of Finance contradicted him completely in his answer to questions before the Finance and Expenditure Committee on the 10th of June, Mr. Speaker, that was last week, that he was going to kick the tyres on the sale of New Zealand Post and see whether it should be put up for sale. That's a total contradiction.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister has said consistently with National's undertaking there'll be no asset sales in this term of office, and if that was to change, then the government will go to the people with a different policy and campaign on it in 2011, and that does involve kicking the tyres.
Mr. Speaker,
how can
the New Zealand public believe anything that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance say when they say one thing in public last week and they contradict it in Parliament this week and they'll contradict it again next week? Why should this government be given any credibility at all on this issue?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, because the government has stuck to its commitment to New Zealanders, which was that there would be no asset sales in this term of office, and if the government changes its position, then it will campaign on that in the 2011 election.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if Kiwibank and New Zealand Post aren't to be privatised, why did the Prime Minister tell his post-Cabinet press conference on the 31st of May that it was possible that there would be a partial float of Kiwibank shares to small investors, and when did he actually change his mind?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government will articulate a position on asset sales consistent with its commitment before the 2011 election. I'd suggest the Labor Party get on with trying to sort out some of their policy, because they actually don't have any for the 2011 election.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How is it that the Prime Minister promised the country on no fewer than 9 occasions before the election that Kiwibank would never be privatised, when the week after the budget he talked about floating shares to small investors in Kiwibank?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister has stuck to his commitment. Kiwibank has not been privatised.
Question number... Oh, sorry, the Honourable Jim Anderton.
Mr Speaker, how does the Prime Minister reconcile his statement that the government has done no work on privatisation with the Treasury statement that it is doing work on privatisation to find out why New Zealanders don't like it? And can he think of anything at all that might help Treasury understand why New Zealanders don't like selling their publicly owned assets?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, Treasury has spent most of its time working on improving the appalling levels of management we inherited of the $200 billion worth of assets that the taxpayer owns. Consistent with the government's position that, in the Prime Minister's words, we will kick the tyres, Treasury will from here be doing some work on whether it is feasible or not.
The Honourable Jim Anderton.
The Minister has not answered what advice the Treasury might get to help them understand the public's opposition to publicly owned asset sales. Does the Prime Minister need any help? Because there's plenty coming from this side of the House.
Is that a summary or point of order?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, Treasury gets all the advice it can get from anywhere. That member probably would do with a bit of help for Treasury advice on his month-long world trip, which included $1,000 dinners.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard. Point of order. 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 I've called a point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, is that an appropriate comment from a minister who spent $500,000
Order.
funds?
Now that was a flagrant abuse of the point of order system, and the member knows that. I will not tolerate that again. Let me be very clear on that. The member's question was a question that was extraordinarily free in terms of the kind of answer that would be given. Ask a question like that, and the ministers are free to say darn near anything. The remedy lies in the hands of the questioner to ask more clear, precise questions. Question number 2,
Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Jim Anderton.
Mr Speaker, there was a wide-ranging question, although it dealt with a specific answer in terms of help to Treasury. But this is an order for the Minister to go even further and accuse, which he's done by implication, expenditure excesses of a government minister who was on government business overseas and paid for by ministerial
the member
service
will
in that
resume
regard.
his seat. I understand why the member, I understand why the member is concerned. I just ask ministers to be careful of that sort of thing. It will lead to disorder, and it is not helpful. Supplementary question, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
How can he, with any credibility, give the answer that he did to the last supplementary when he has gained, as a family, over $500,000 from pretending to live in Dipton?
Point of order, the Honourable Cherry Brownlee.
Now, Mr Speaker, the question is to the Prime Minister and needs to be addressed accordingly.
The member may order. The member makes a perfectly good point of order, and if the member's supplementary is to be in order, he needs to reword it.
How can his Minister of Finance have any credibility when the Minister of Finance's family has gained $500,000?
Point of order.
Point of order. The Honourable Cherry Brownlee.
The primary question goes directly to the issue of the opposition's allegation that Kiwibank has been privatised. It doesn't stray from that, and nor have any of the supplementaries that have been around it. Indeed, the exchange with the Honourable Jim Anderton was related to his desire to ask a question about advice the Treasury got on the privatisation issue. This supplementary strays well off that particular focus on the primary question.
Order. I accept that the question asked by the Honourable Jim Anderton did not stray a long way from the primary question. The answer given by the Minister, though, introduced material that was somewhat different from the primary question. Now, I've thought about, as as the member was asking his question, is it in order? Given the answer of the minister, though, he